Well, would you look at that? What a day in Baltimore. I'm going to try to. Are we back? Okay. I don't know why my mic is just being so fantastic the past few days. Let's see. Can everyone hear me? Can we hear me? Wow. First off, welcome to the Ryan Ripken Show. I'm your host, Zach Bollinger. For the next few days, next few shows, Ryan's out of town. He's got to take care of some business. He's got to focus on himself, and he better not, I saw it earlier in the chat, he better not be popping in this chat. He better be enjoying himself right now. And we're going to enjoy ourselves as well. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Live at 5 weekdays every single day. We're here chopping it up, talking about baseball as our backbone. We're going to talk about football throughout the weeks. But today's going to be very, very baseball heavy. And of course, it is going to be Pete Alonso and the Orioles centered, because that's the news right now. About 20 minutes ago, Pete Alonso, Scott Boras, David Rubenstein, and Mike Elias had their press conference. And my goodness, if you're an Oriole fan, it's hard not to get fired up after talking about that. After listening to the things that they said, because there was a lot to unpack. There was a lot to unpack, but goodness, did it feel great to see it all go down, to feel like there is hope again in Baltimore, that they are going to be in on these big free agents. They are going to make these moves, and my goodness, are the Baltimore Orioles going to try to win a World Series? What a day, what an event. But before we get into that, we have to shout out our friends over at Merit Clubs. Lots of deals going on through the new year. So go check it out over at meritclubs.com to get started. Hey, I'm not going to lie. We're getting to that holiday season. After the new year, we're all going to lie to ourselves and say we're getting back in the gym. It's what happens. But go check it out over at meritclubs.com. MERRITT, baby. Wow. Wow. What a day. Pete Alonso, the Orioles, all day for the past about 3 hours at this point, have been posting him around Camden Yards. You have him talking about how he wants to be the first right-handed hitter to hit a ball onto Utah Street. You have him talking about the fans, about how Albernaz and the crew and that coaching staff helped seal the deal. You have David Rubenstein talking about how, hey, there's no limit to the cash we're spending. He even said, and I quote, as long as the rules are what they are at the moment, they are going to spend. We have Scott Boras talking about how impressed he was with the Baltimore Orioles, something I never really thought I would hear. Scott Boras at a Baltimore Orioles introductory press conference. Music to my ears. Music to my ears. But we're going to start off with this before I get into my reaction to some of the things that were said from Pete, from Elias, from Rubenstein, from Boras. I thought we should start with this clip of Pete Alonso from the press conference talking about, hey, why Baltimore? A lot of other options out there. Why Baltimore? So let's listen to Pete talk about that, and then we'll react on the other side.
Documented that you really loved being a New York Met. Was there a conversation or maybe something in negotiations that you started to really see yourself as a Baltimore Oriole?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think as like the free agent process, like once that kind of starts, you really kind of don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like this weird baseball limbo. But then as you start to sit down and really kind of think about things, you kind of have some time to really reflect. But then honestly, like as the offseason progressed and realistically, I mean, as as we got further along, this partnership has, for me, it was just head and shoulders above everybody else. Like this park, this city, this team, this organization, everything combined, everything just clicked. And for me, I think that was it was the perfect fit for not just as a player, but for family life too. I mean, I could go up and down a laundry list of things where it's like, there's just so many boxes, like every single box this place checks. And for us, we're just so pleased. And for this organization to see me, not just in the now, but in the future. I mean, it's such a blessing, and I can't wait to play. Can't wait to perform. I can't wait to win games.
I have chills at the end. Can't wait to play. Can't wait to perform. And I can't wait to win games, because that's what Pete Alonso was brought here to do. This wasn't spend money so that you spend money. This wasn't, hey, we're going to open up the checkbook so people get off our backs. The Baltimore Orioles are spending to win. The Baltimore Orioles want to win. And you listen to Pete in that talk about head and shoulders above the rest. Listen, they talked earlier in the press conference. They asked Pete, what was a selling point to you about Baltimore? And say what you want about Mike Elias. He brought up the pitch, what Mike and them did to get his attention. And he said they went through the lineup, talked about what they see they had, the positives of the lineup, the superstars, the young budding superstars. They had Jackson, Gunnar, Basayo. He said then they went through and they talked about, hey, here's what it's projected if we add a Pete Alonso, if there is a polar bear in the middle of it. It seems like the Orioles knocked this out of the park in their pitch, in their negotiations. He talked about Albarnez and his crew coming in and talking about the way they're going to perform. Talked about having the players ready to run through a wall. I can speak very littly about my interactions. I've had just a few interactions with Albarnez in his short time so far as an Orioles manager. But in the short conversations I've had, you understand why guys want to play for him. And it does not surprise me at all that after a conversation with Albie, that Alonso was like, okay, I'm buying in. I'm buying into not only this team, this organization, this ownership group, this front office. You don't commit 5 years. That's 5 years, no opt-outs. This isn't a classic Orioles contract where they gave him a big 4-year deal, but there's an opt-out after the first, so it's really a 1-year deal if he performs. And if he doesn't, you're stuck with the contract. This is a 5-year commitment by both sides. We sit here and we joke about liftoff. Well, Mike Elias dropped his new phrase, it's a new era. And he talked about this is the way that the Orioles will be operating moving forward. And Austin, this is a big part of it. David Rubenstein, as I talked about just a few minutes ago, mentioning, hey, as long as the rules allow it right now, we're going to go after players. We're going to try to make a splash. If there is a player that we want, we are allowing Mike and them to go get them. Doesn't matter what it takes. We're not restricting, oh, well, okay, as long as we don't hit this $200 million, salary cap or salary ceiling. They don't have that. David Rubenstein mentioned about this ownership group wants to go for it. They want to win. And I've had conversations with the ownership group before. Let me tell you something. That's a competitive group. They were not happy about finishing last, and they're proving it. They are proving. And Ken Rosenthal talked about it yesterday or 2 days ago, on MLB Network, I believe, or maybe it was Foul Territory. He said the ownership group is stepping up. It's a mid-market team. They don't have all the funds coming in of the Dodgers, of the Yankees, of the Mets. But this ownership group is stepping up. They're saying, hey, we finished last place. That's not happening again. They even mentioned Mike Elias when talking about why you keep adding. He's like, hey, this is a tough division in the AL East. This isn't a cakewalk. Yeah, we added Pete Alonso, but the Red Sox are trying to add guys. The Blue Jays are trying to add guys. The Yankees are trying to add guys. The Rays are the Rays. I joke all the time. You could put 26 guys out there for the Tampa Bay Rays. They're going to find a way to win 85 games. Incredible. Truly incredible. Just the difference in tone, the difference in energy around this Baltimore Orioles team now compared to just a year ago, compared to just 6 months ago. Heck, compared to just a few weeks ago. The Orioles are going for it. They talked about it. They mentioned it earlier in the press conference about, hey, yeah, there are no constraints. If we see a guy that we're going for or we want, we're going to go for him. That leads me into my next topic. Ken Rosenthal on Foul Territory today, they were taking some questions, and someone asked about the Baltimore Orioles adding pitching. And yesterday, Ryan Ripken gave us a guarantee that the Baltimore Orioles were going to add a pitcher. Let's listen to Ken talk about this a little bit. Then we'll continue our conversation on, hey, it's awesome to get Pete, but what is next in Baltimore? So let's listen to what Ken has to say.
Thunder 68, Ken, has a question about the O's, who obviously just landed Pete Alonso. Who do you think the Orioles grab in terms of starting pitching help?
Well, Ranger Suarez is a free agent that they've been linked to. Edward Cabrera, I reported with Will Salmon the other day that that's a pitcher they're pursuing in trade. Freddie Peralta, we mentioned as well. I'm sure they're on virtually every starting pitcher in the market. And with the Alonso signing, it doesn't necessarily signal that they're going to stop spending. If anything, they're going to keep going, as I was just mentioning with the Giants. Once you get to a certain point, you want to make your team as strong as possible. They have had so far arguably the best season of any team. I'm talking about Leody Taveras, Andrew Kittredge, Taylor Ward, Pete Alonso, and Ryan Helsley. That's a big haul. And again, they're not done. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going. Maybe they're not sure. They're probably operating on multiple fronts, but they are going to come away with a starting pitcher. And keep in mind, they're not exactly lacking in that area. They've got Trevor Rogers, who really came on at the end of last season, Kyle Bradish, who came back from Tommy John. So they're in a good spot, but they need one more, if not two.
I have a question for you regarding that. Actually, two questions. They traded away Grayson Rodriguez, though, Ken. So why trade away Rodriguez when you are in need of a starter?
To get Taylor Ward, and because you're not sure Grayson Rodriguez will be healthy. Taylor Ward was arguably best right-handed hitting outfielder available. That is a position and it's of great scarcity right now. What I was trying to say was right-handed hitting outfielders, you can't find them. Mike Petriello wrote a great article on MLB.com last week about this. They're just extremely scarce. So they took a chance with Grayson Rodriguez, but that was the choice that they made.
In all likelihood, do you think their starting pitching help, Ken, comes via trade, or is there someone on the free agent market you see fitting in?
My guess is trade. They've made their big free agent signing with Alonso. They've also signed Helsley, much lesser deal, but a significant deal. And they have players to trade. Kobe Mayo is one, perhaps. Ryan Mountcastle is now expendable with Pete Alonso coming aboard. So they can do some things from a trade perspective. They've got other prospects as well. I would expect that's the way they would prefer to go. Now, whether it's the way they actually go, I don't know. Maybe they feel they can get Ranger Suarez on a great deal and they go in that direction. Maybe they do that and trade for a starting pitcher. Kind of the world is their oyster right now.
The world is their oyster right now. So many parts of that get me fired up, but the one I want to start with, Ken Rosenthal. We are on December 12th. The offseason is truly just taking stride. Mention the haul. That's the word that they use to describe what the Orioles are doing right now. A haul. Leody Taveras, Taylor Ward, Ryan Helsley. You get Kittredge back. You bring in the polar bear Pete Alonso on 5 years, $155 million. Said the Baltimore Orioles may be at this moment the winners of the offseason. We wanted aggression. Fans wanted them to go for it. But I don't know if we ever really saw this. And for him to say that on December 12th, that the Orioles have won the offseason so far with this haul, and then in the same breath go, but they're not done. There's a different feeling around this front office, around this management, around this team, this culture. They're building something. And I think it's something that guys want to be a part of now. Talk about Framber Valdez. Let's bring up, Ranger Suarez, as he mentioned. You obviously have the Michael Kings. There are guys out there who can make a big difference in free agency for this pitching staff. And on top of that, they're going to make a trade for one. Once again, I'll say it. They're going to. They aren't going to come into spring training with Ryan Mountcastle, Kobe Mayo, and Pete Alonso standing on first base. That's not smart. It's not going to happen. They're going to make a trade. And I think this is one of those off seasons where we could look back in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years and talk about how insane that 25-26 offseason was. How that changed the way people looked at the Baltimore Orioles. Talked about it yesterday. I still think a guy like Mackenzie Gore, Edward Cabrera, or Freddie Peralta, I think one of those three is pitching in Baltimore come spring training. I do. I just think it lines up. The Orioles have young talent. They just got this influx of prospects at the deadline during the draft. I think it was 38 prospects they added between the draft and deadline. Use your farm system. Allow it to work for you. You obviously, Kobe Mayo, I still think extremely highly of. I think in a situation where he gets 140 games, I think he can be a damn good player. But right now you have your first baseman for the next 5 years. I don't know if that lines up. So you go, okay, it takes talent to get talent. A package with Kobe Mayo, maybe do you put in a Cade Povich, something like that. Does that get you Mackenzie Gore? Does that get you Edward Cabrera? Or now you can plug them into your number 3 spot, maybe your number 4, because, hey, they've already mentioned it. The Orioles are in on Suarez. They're in on Valdez. They're in on Michael King. They're in on all these top pitchers in free agency, and they're in on all these guys in the trade market. But everything that keeps coming up, they don't sound exclusive from each other. We keep hearing the Orioles are going to add one, and then they say maybe 2. I would not be surprised if it's one trade, one signing. I wouldn't. I think this team is going for it. And I think the team that they put out there on whatever it is, March 26th, when they go out there on Camden Yards, I think that this team is going to go. And on paper, that's very big. On paper, because the games are played on grass and you got to win them there. On paper, I think they will put together one of the strongest rosters in all of baseball. This team is, it feels different this season. We've sat through off seasons where they've done nothing, where they've made a single move that you felt like, and I forget who said it yesterday in the comments, but it was right. in a lot of other seasons, Taylor Ward is probably your big move. Getting Taylor Ward, adding him, you're like, okay, maybe he gets a few more RBIs, helps us on the edges. He's kind of an afterthought move right now. That's a guy who finished with 103 RBIs last year. The Orioles are adding to this team. Ken Rosenthal just talked about, adding Taylor Ward. Why did you get him? He was the best right-handed hitting outfielder available. Like, it wasn't a consolation prize. Yes, I know we can talk about, Grayson Rodriguez. If he's healthy with all those years of control, could that come back to bite them? Yeah, it 1,000% could. Taylor Ward might leave after a single year, and Grayson Rodriguez is winning 15 to 20 games in Anaheim over the next 4. That happens. That's part of baseball where you take risks, but I'd rather them take risks trying to be in win now mode than what we felt like before, where part of it was like they had half an eye on 26 and half an eye on 2030. You got to build for the long run, but you also, it feels good that it seems like they're in and they are being aggressive. I think this Orioles offseason is sending a message to a lot of people that, hey, the Orioles are here, and maybe more importantly, the Orioles aren't going anywhere. They want to go out and spend. They want to be a team that people have to worry about. And in the AL East, you have to. The Yankees will never rebuild. I can guarantee you that the New York Yankees will never rebuild. They will never tear it down. They're always just going to retool. They're going to go get the top guy. They'll spend the most money when they need to go get that guy. They're not going anywhere. Boston, you talk about the Orioles having a lot of really good young players in the core. Man, Boston has an influx. Roman Anthony, Michael Myers, Cedeno Rafaela, obviously Wilyer Abreu, you got Duran, you got Casas, you have that, Crochet and all that. Toronto Blue Jays just represented the American League in the World Series, and in all honesty, they were one out away from World Series champions, being in the exact same situation, mind you, 365 days ago as the Orioles were. You can take that jump. The Blue Jays just proved it. You can go out there and win and go from worst to first and represent the American League. The Orioles are putting together something, and Mike Elias yesterday even talked about it. He's like, hey, I don't think it is necessarily done adding to the lineup. Maybe not a star player like a Pete Alonso. They don't come around all that often, but they're going to be looking for some rotational guys, some depth pieces, because you're going to need depth. Not everyone's going to play all 162. Pete Alonso is putting a lot of, high expectations that he's played. I think it's like 460 straight games. Look out, Cal. No. But I think the Orioles are finally doing something that puts excitement in Baltimore fans. I think that's all you can ask for. The Orioles are being aggressive. That's fun. You talked about it, so funny. You go around the league and now you're looking at teams like the Padres where they have this young, they have all these star players, but they're talking about, they might trade. They're potentially shopping Mason Miller. They're potentially shopping Fernando Tatis. They're looking to shed some money. The Orioles are on the up and up. If you're able to add a Framber Valdez, a Ranger Suarez, if you're able to add a Mackenzie Gore and Edward Cabrera, Freddie Peralta, I mean, my perfect offseason, I've said it before, is trading for Freddie Peralta. You've done this deal before. You traded for Corbin Burns on the last year of his contract because the Brewers said, hey, we're not paying him. Sorry, Corbin, we think you're great. We're not paying you. He's available for cheaper than he would be because we know he's not staying. I think they have no plans on signing Freddie Peralta long term. Go make them a deal. Go get Freddie Peralta. And I'll also say this. We talked about before, and even with Burns, you felt like, hey, you get him. It's a 1-year rental still. Does it have to be? Trevor Rogers, and this is the other part that people aren't really talking about. Why I think they go and get an Edward Cabrera or a Mackenzie Gore is also it takes pressure off of you having Trevor Rogers is a free agent after this year. You bring in Mackenzie Gore, that takes pressure off you to have to sign Trevor Rogers long term. Something also it didn't get lost in the shuffle for me at least. Scott Boras at a Baltimore Orioles introductory press conference for one of his top clients. Pretty cool. But he talked about the aftermath and what kind of happened after everything. And he said guys like Gunnar, like Jackson, I believe Westberg, called him afterwards, talked about the excitement around the team, but around what they're building. We'll talk about how it can impact extensions. The Orioles start proving that, hey, we're in win now mode. We're going to spend money. We're going to go out there and try to win a World Series. Guys want to be around that. Guys want to be in that clubhouse. I think what Craig Albernoz is going to do for this team and the culture for this team, I think he's going to bring something really special. I think he is inheriting a team that has a lot of untapped talent, of talent that did not live up to expectation in 2025, and they will tell you that. But I think this team, the culture that they're building, they're going to go do something special. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go win the World Series this year. But I think there is going to be very, very, very exciting baseball in Baltimore. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show. Looking a little different right now. I know. I'm Zach Bollinger. I am not Ryan Ripken. Ryan is currently away, enjoying himself like he should. And if he hops in the chat again, I will yell at him. So Ryan's over there. He is enjoying himself. It's going to be just me for the most part. Brad will probably hop on for a little bit over the next, next week. We might have a wild Kevin Ostreicher or Rocco DeSangro hop on. But bear with me. Bear with me. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe. We are live every single day of the week or weekday. Kind of messed that up. Live at 5, Monday through Friday. Usually on Mondays and Thursdays, we're in the big studio. We'll see what happens over the next week. But, hey, the show ain't stopping, especially with the way the Orioles are rolling. So we got a lot of awesome content coming out for you guys. We just sat down with new Orioles manager Craig Albernoz that is on the channel. So go check that out after this. Going to be a shorter show, probably only another 10, 15 minutes from me. But this is, there was no way I wasn't coming on to talk about this because what an exciting time in Baltimore. And yeah, this is another thing. Alonso is the leader our young dudes need. And they kind of alluded to this at the press conference. The Orioles have a very, very, very young team. And I think a big reason for last year's struggles is they maybe didn't have that vocal leader, that clubhouse glue guy that just leads by example, that does everything right, that, they can go to, that steers the ship when things aren't going well. I think it's fair to say. I think Pete Alonso brings what this team needs, not only on the field but off the field. You talk about, or people when they talk about Pete, it's not only his on the field impact, it's off the field. And yeah, it goes as far as in the community, the things he does in the community and how he's able to give back and entrench himself in the community, entrench himself in a clubhouse and become that guy, become that leader. So I think that's going to be a big impact right there. And we talked about it yesterday. They no longer have to be that dude. Gunnar doesn't have to be that dude. Adley doesn't have to be that dude. Basayo doesn't have to be that dude. Westy doesn't have to be that dude. Kausner doesn't have to be that dude. Jackson doesn't have to be that dude, because now you got a dude posting up 162 games at first base. You have a dude that when guys get on base, you know he's going to drive them in. You don't have to be the star player. And I think that helps them live up to their potential. I think it takes all the pressure in the world off them, and they can just play and be themselves. Gunnar Henderson, for the first time in his career, has protection. Like, you can't walk Gunnar. He's going to steal second. Now suddenly Pete, who's batting behind him, has a guy in scoring position. So you're going to have to throw him a fastball. And what happens when Gunnar gets more fastballs in the strike zone, when he gets more strikes, because you can't pitch around him? That ball's going to end up on Utah Street a whole lot more. That ball's going to end up in the gap a whole lot more. Batting in front of Gunnar, you have Westy. Can't let Westy on. You got Gunnar and Pete behind him. Are you kidding me? This changes the lineup. Changes the lineup. And it makes guys around them better. Taylor Ward, Pete Alonso, 2 RBI machines, 229 combined RBIs last year that the Orioles brought in to add to their lineup. It's a lot of runs. It's a lot of runs. And I just saw this. Yeah, James, I think Gore from the Nats is more than a possibility. I think that is a likely source that they, that they go to try to get that talent. The Orioles and Nationals have never made a trade in their history. It's crazy. Maybe this is different. Maybe this year is different, because I know the Nats would love to have a guy like Kobe Mayo playing first for them as they rebuild. And I know the Orioles would love to have a guy like Mackenzie Gore sitting at that number 3 spot in the rotation. But real fast, I do want to look at this. I'll share my screen. Is Pete Fairbanks a possibility? I'm not sure. I still think they add a back-end relief option for the 7th and 8th inning, maybe to bridge Kittredge to Helsley. Fairbanks, if he's willing to pitch in the 8th, I would love that. Absolutely love that. But let me share my screen real fast, because this is something I'm talking about. Would you look at that? I mean, look at that projected potential lineup. Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westbrook, Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, Adley Rutschman, Taylor Ward, Dylan Beavers, Colton Cowser. Do you understand how insane it is that Samuel Basayo, who has 30-plus homer potential, can drive in 100 RBIs? He's seen as one of the best pure power hitters, prospects that we've seen, that the Orioles have ever had. He is sitting there, and he's going to have to bat 9th. Dylan Beavers, machine at getting on base. And something I also want to point out, you're starting to get a little bit more balanced. Taylor Ward, righty. Pete Alonso, righty. So now you have the switch hitter and Adley, obviously, in the middle. But you got 6. What is this? 5 lefties, 3 righties, and a switch hitter. Pretty good. Get that balance. And hey, Pete hits righties. better than he hits lefties, and he's not bad against lefties. Now let's go down to where, you talk about the starting rotation. Right here, Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish. I think you add a guy like Mackenzie Gore. I think you add a guy like an Edward Cabrera to go in front of Kramer. You add a guy like Suarez or Framber to slide in, maybe ahead of these guys. I think if they get two more guys, meaning a Mackenzie Gore and Edward Cabrera, Freddie Peralta in a trade, and then you double dip and you go get a free agent like Suarez, who I know there are reports that, hey, he might not be close. He wants 7 years. I don't know if I would go 7. Maybe if you can get him for 5, that would work. Go get a Framber. Go get a Michael King. Suddenly you look at this pitching rotation, and Mike Elias already said, Jeff Passan tweeted out after the move, the Orioles are going to have one of the best offenses in baseball, one of the best lineups, 1 through 9. It's hard to find others that can compete. And the coaching staff, Albernez, Donnie Ecker, like these guys, they're building something special. You can feel it. You can feel it in the energy around the clubhouse already, and it's not even the season. You can feel it in the way they talk, the way other people talk about it. I think this Orioles team is on the brink of doing something pretty special. But the job's not done. And I think the bullpen, we can talk about this for a second. So I would love to get a bridge guy. If you can bridge Kittredge to Helsley, if you can get a guy in that 8th inning spot, and then you're hoping Yanier bounces back. If Yennier Cano can just get back to 2024 Yanier, where he wasn't the most dominant, but he was really good. Keegan Aiken has been really good in spurts. He's a guy that you really have come to be able to rely on as maybe a little bit longer lefty reliever. I think if you add guys to the rotation, Tyler Wells goes to the bullpen. That would be nice. Have his fastball go a few ticks higher because he doesn't have to conserve. We've seen him be good out of the bullpen before. Dietrich Enns was awesome. And you can find these guys off waivers. Tyler Rogers, I see people talking about that. That would be really, really cool. I would really like that. But I think, with a guy like Dietrich Enns, you can find these guys on waivers to fill in your, 6th, 5th, and 6th, that early relief. I think, yes, bullpen needs work. I don't know if we get a Sir Anthony reunion. I would love it personally. I would love that. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. But I think the Orioles, you get another starter or two, you really can start to build something special with this team. Really, really, really can. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how, when the dust settles, when they break for camp, what this team looks like. I would love to get 2 more pitchers, starting pitchers, 1 more relief pitcher, and then let's go play ball. Let's go play ball. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Ryan Ripken Show. I want to say Kevin and Zach React. Ryan Ripken Show live weekdays at 5, Monday through Friday. A little different. Ryan is currently out of town, hopefully enjoying himself, so he better not be tuned in right now. But appreciate everyone for sticking with me, even as he's out. We'll be back next week at 5 o'clock on Monday. Appreciate everyone in the comments. If you want to talk more, follow me on X at Zach Bollinger 18. I will be talking Pete Alonso, Orioles baseball all day long. So appreciate everyone. Shout out, as always, to our friends over at Merit Clubs. Appreciate all they do. Go check out all their deals through the new year at meritclubs.com. That's MERRITT, meritclubs.com. Appreciate you all. I did see Pete Alonso say first right-handed hitter to hit it to Utah Street. Also, before I head out, Pete Alonso dropping a Buck Showalter impression was one of the highlights of that press conference. Got me fired up. I love that he called Buck and that Buck gave such a resounding, such a great, I don't want to say review of Baltimore. I'm excited. I think that this team is going to do a lot of good, but we're going to cover a whole lot more next week on everything going on around Major League Baseball, around the NFL. Have a great stinking weekend, everyone, and we will see you back here on Monday for another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. Enjoy your Friday, everyone.